Ray.
This is Andy.
And this is FDS CFL Andy, Season 3, Episode 18.
Episode 18 and Week 16 in the books. Yeah. And yes, that's confusing.
It's almost over.
But we're getting over it. Yep.
It's almost over.
This episode of FDS CFL is brought to you by Moose Light. Why, Ray?
It's scary good.
It is scary good. I'm going to enjoy one during this show right now. And if you need hats, shirts, jackets, anything with a logo, look at this hat. These FDS hats are high in demand these days.
Beautiful. You go DCI logo on the side.
It's on the other side, but yeah, exactly. And DCI, go see our buddies, the Doyles at Doyle Corporate Image, because
the Doyles rule.
The Doyles rule. Ray was on a trip to Buffalo to watch his Bills play the Patriots on the weekend. He didn't get to see much or any CFL. I'm not sure. We're going to run through the recaps. I know you've looked into the games and so on, so let's do them. The first game was Hamilton going to Winnipeg. Now, this was a big one.
This was a big game. This game was going to really kind of set things from an east-west perspective.
Yeah.
How strong was Hamilton? Because everybody knows I've been a little tough on Hamilton.
Yeah.
This was a big matchup.
Well, let me tell you something. Dane Evans was absolutely brilliant on the road. The Hamilton receiving core is unreal. They've got weapons like crazy, and the defense is great. The defense kept Streveler in check, and Hamilton just took care of business easily. But I'm going to tell you something about both the quarterbacks in this game, Streveler and Dane Evans. I think both these teams could win a Grey Cup with these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And one of my major messages in our power rankings, which we'll talk a little later, is it's time to stop calling these guys backups, especially Dane Evans,
yes,
who's playing himself into a starting job next season.
Mazzoli's gone.
Well, his contract is up, so we'll see what happens.
Mazzoli is gone.
You think so?
Yes. Dane Evans is the guy. I didn't think he was at the beginning of the season. Like you said, he's played himself into 359 yards against Winnipeg's defense at home, 3 touchdowns, Andy.
Yep.
Plus, the Ticats hold Andrew Harris to 37 yards rushing. So, listen.
They've got it all.
Hamilton's starting to rise. I think it's going to be a real exciting, last few weeks of the season for the Ticats and the Montreal Alouettes. Yep. I think the East is exciting this year with those two teams.
Yep. The only thing I'd like to see Hamilton figure out a way to do is run the ball, but when you've got a receiving core like that and Dane Evans is getting together, you don't necessarily need it. So
and Luke Tasker's not even playing yet.
Right. I think he was supposed to be back in that game, but he's been out for a while. So
yeah.
The next game, we got Edmonton rolling into Ottawa, despite the fact that Edmonton's playing with a backup quarterback that I would still call a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Figured this would be a pretty easy game for them. But the Red Blacks gave them a big-time run. Both defenses played pretty good and gave Edmonton a scare. But Kilgore came up big late. There was a late injury to Dominic Davis, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, again, I'm not too fussy about Dominic Davis, but otherwise, this seemed to me like a battle of the two worst teams in each division, I guess, so to speak. I don't think there's a lot. Yes,
it's funny you say that.
BC obviously, is worse, but
yeah.
BC's actually, showing some signs of life, where Edmonton's going in the other direction. And now that we know for sure that Trevor Harris is out for the rest of the season,
I didn't know that.
I'm quite positive that was announced, and I will check to make sure that I'm not wrong about that as we move along here in this show. But I'm pretty sure he's done for the season. Now we know that this is Kilgore's show, and I don't have high hopes for Edmonton at all. Now, the next game, Ray, Saskatchewan goes to Toronto. I actually caught most of this one, and it was a blast to watch. Now, when you look at the score...
can I make a comment on that?
Yep.
So, Third Down Nation,
they've
written that there's no specific target date for a return for quarterback Trevor Harris.
Yeah.
But it doesn't state that he's actually out.
I swear I've seen a report that he will miss the rest of the season, but we'll figure that out later.
Okay.
The Saskatchewan-Toronto game was a lot of fun to watch, and I'll tell you why it was fun to watch, Ray. Cody Fajardo. He was amazing. They absolutely smashed Toronto. Man, Franklin is not fun to watch at all, the quarterback. I got to be honest with you. He doesn't play with a lot of urgency out there. He got a few things going in the second half, but it wasn't fun to watch. It was nice to see Manny Arsenault get a touchdown for the Riders, but Cody Fajardo was doing what he wanted out there. He ran a touchdown in. It was a lot of fun to watch this game. Saskatchewan's a really good team. That's really all I can say.
We said Franklin deserved another chance after what he came in the fourth quarter in the previous game.
Yeah.
He's definitely not the answer for Toronto.
He's not fun. At least Bethel Thompson's fun to watch.
And
both good and bad.
He is. Now, hopefully, I don't know what's going on with Caleros, but if Caleros is good to go, I think it's time to turn the ball over to Caleros and see if he's got anything left.
I think he's got a few more weeks before he can even practice with the way, with his status. So I think that's it. And then, man, this one hurt a little bit. Montreal at BC. Ray and I have really kind of, taken a liking to Montreal as our team in the East. They go into BC. BC's been playing good. Though we both knew they can't win without Vernon Adams Jr. They ended up not starting Pipken. They started the other guy. I can't even think of his name right now. Schultz.
Let me tell you. Here, I'll wrap this game up for you real quick.
Okay.
Riley puts up 309 yards, goes 88.2% pass completion, Andy.
Yep.
And Schultz, well, he was the Schultz. Let's move on.
Despite all that, though, the Owls did have a chance. The Owls did have a chance at a game-winning drive at the very end of the game. They had the ball, they were driving, and they had a fumble. They fumbled the game away. Very, very unfortunate.
Okay,
Ray, do you have a take it or leave it this week?
Andy, I don't have a take it this week. As you mentioned, I was away, and I just didn't get a chance to do a deep dive into my take it and leave it this week. So my leave it this week, Andy, is I'm going to leave my take it and leave it segment and move on to odds and ends because we got a whole bunch of Schooners stuff to talk about.
There's a lot of Schooner stuff. All right, we'll do power rankings first really quickly as usual, and then we'll get into it because you're right, there's a lot of Schooners news.
Okay.
And, of course, it doesn't all have a big-time positive spin. The power rankings this week were kind of fun. We had a listener that may or may not be a fan of us, but
he said a couple positive things.
Yeah, he said some positive things, but he reached out to us to ask us how we do our power rankings. And he was very respectful about it. He said some people do it this way, some people do it that way. So I had to repeat to him, and I'll repeat again. The way Ray and I treat power rankings is we treat it as a conversation starter about which team we think is better at any given particular time. So the team that's at the very top of our list week to week is the team we think is the best in the league.
Do you remember that commercial? There used to be a commercial years ago, Andy. Ancient Chinese Secret. Remember that?
No.
Ancient Chinese Secret. That was a commercial. It was a slogan for a product back in the day.
Oh.
It just popped into my head for some reason.
Okay.
But there's a little secret sauce on how we put our power rankings together.
Okay. Well, I guess so. But yeah, anyway. So Hamilton moves back to the top in my after that win and the way they won in Winnipeg. They were my top team for a while, and I dropped them down after their loss and moved Calgary up. But they absolutely had to have the top spot. I do think Hamilton. He's not a backup anymore. Dane Evans can lead this team to a Grey Cup, and I do think Hamilton's the best team in the league at the moment. Calgary, even though they were on their bye, they had to go somewhere because they couldn't be a number one anymore. So I dropped them to number 2. Saskatchewan moves up to 3 with their big win. Winnipeg goes down to 4. Montreal stays put at 5. Edmonton stays put at 6. BC moves up to 8. You had already done that a week early, but with BC's win over Montreal, I think it's a very good team. They got a little momentum going. They got their 4th win in the season. I decided to move them up, and then Toronto and Ottawa to finish it off.
There you go.
Yeah.
I left Calgary in the number 1 slot simply because of the bye week. And I think people have a tough time understanding why I do that. But the second that I move a team down because they're on a bye week, then I get their fans ripping me saying, how can you move a team down because they're on their bye week?
Yeah.
So you can't win, you can't lose, Andy. So you know what?
Can't win, can't lose.
Calgary stayed number 1 for me. Hamilton's number 2. I'm really impressed how Hamilton's playing, though. Saskatchewan, I moved them up into 3rd out of 4th. Cody Fajardo, He's no longer a backup either. This
No,
guy
no, no,
is.
no.
This guy is.
He's the
real
quarterback
deal.
of the future there.
We're going to get into a little Winnipeg Blue Bombers talk here in a second. They moved down to 4th again. Alouettes dropped, and then my bottom 5 are the same as last week, pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing special to talk about there. All right. Well, let's get into odds and ends.
Odds and ends. We're going to start off with a little Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Andy, because Matt Nichols spoke to the press this week, and Matt Nichols says that he's going to be watching from the sideline for the rest of the year. He is on a contract year, Andy. So he had a couple quotes. He said, this is something that's out of his control, but he would love to be back in Winnipeg next year.
Okay.
He's 32 years old. He feels like he's still in the middle of his prime. But
Middle of his prime. Okay.
he's out for the season as he needs surgery. And my biggest question, if I'm the Blue Bombers right now, who's my future? Is it Strevler or Nichols? And I know the Blue Bombers have dropped a couple games recently.
Yeah.
I think there's some work they need to do on their offense as far as how they're using Strevler and Harris, because I just don't think they're getting the best out of both at the same time.
Right.
But I love Strevler. I've already said it. And I think Strevler is the future in Winnipeg.
Nice. If I was a Bombers fan and you asked me that question, I think I would have to say at the moment neither. I'd say there's a lot of year to year. There's a lot of movement and turnover in the CFL, and I think the Bombers might be smart to go after another. Mazzoli would be a very good quarterback for Winnipeg. Dane Evans, if Hamilton decides to keep Mazzoli again, don't throw Mazzoli in the trash, man. He's the reigning most outstanding player in the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go ahead and say neither. And I saw a GIF or a meme or something like that on Facebook about Matt Nichols that I thought was kind of uncalled for, but it was probably from a Saskatchewan fan and they hate the Bombers. I did chuckle at it. It was a picture of Matt Nichols and it said, I tried to throw in the towel, but they intercepted that too.
Oh man.
And anyway, I chuckled at it. So, right.
Come on, guys.
Come
on.
I thought it was uncalled for.
Those darn Saskatchewan fans, they're as tough as the Patriots fans. But all right, Andy, we got to talk about the Halifax Atlantic Schooners.
Oh, I need a drink.
Lots
for
of
this.
stuff has come out. Okay, so let me just give you. So we know that the proposal was given on August 30th, and the town councilors or city councilors finally got their hands on the proposal this past week. And
well, they still haven't. It hasn't been presented to them, but it's been posted online to look through.
So now
they've
had the opportunity to read through it.
They can look at it.
There's a couple comments that come out of it right away that I've seen in numerous different articles. One is very little risk to the taxpayer.
Okay.
This is an insult to the taxpayer.
Okay, that's an opposite.
These are comments that are coming out of the press from different counselors.
I know, this is crazy.
Crazy. People are completely on different ends of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
Initially, the talks were about a 12,000 permanent seating with 10,000 temporary
the opposite
seating.
side. Yeah, I think it's a great plan.
They want a full-fledged 24,000 seat stadium is what one of the articles from Halifax
it's ridiculous.
says.
There's people saying it's a Mickey Mouse stadium. Yeah. We need a real stadium, or there's no way it's going to work. Well, we can't pay for a real stadium.
Yeah. Now, initially, it looked like they were going to the city, asking the city for financing, but in the bulk of the funding is actually going to come from the province of Nova Scotia,
right?
And they're proposing that the province create or increase the hotel and car rental tax.
Yeah.
Right.
But the bulk of it will be the tax incremental funding.
Right.
Right. So, which is it's an interesting concept that hasn't been used a lot. I don't know if you know much about it, Ray, but long story short, with tax incremental funding is basically you build the stadium there, and the surrounding area in Shannon Park, obviously the value of all the properties and everything increases, and the additional tax revenue and of those property tax revenue of those places goes towards helping to fund the stadium. Now,
right.
That's where the bulk of the funding is coming from.
Right.
And then let's not forget, that the ownership group themselves are putting $60 million into this.
Right.
People keep forgetting.
They forget that.
Yeah.
But basically, what they're looking for is a $110 million loan to cover the land and construction of the stadium. They're looking for it to be amortized over 30 years, Andy.
Right.
And they'll pay back $5 to $6 million a year, which will come from all these different increased tax revenues.
But it's not the province lending them the money. They will go to a private lender for that, but they're hoping that the province will help them pay that down through this arrangement.
Right.
So, and I mean, we are seeing all kinds of comments about it. There's tons of negative articles and posts being written about it by the newspapers and so on and so forth. It's all very one-sided. It's all very agenda-driven. So we'll see. At the end of the day, we'll see. But the quotes that we're getting from the Halifax City Councillors, at least the ones that are talking right now, is not encouraging whatsoever.
It's not encouraging. Now, Mayor Mike Savage, he says he needs some more time to put all his facts together before he gives his opinion on this.
Right.
I know he wants his team there.
He's pro-stadium.
There's so many benefits to having this team in Halifax. Councillor Susan LeBlanc has come out furious that we're even talking stadium with the housing crisis that's going on in Halifax right now.
Yeah.
Listen, every city's always going to have a reason or something of why we can't do something, Andy. But if you sit with that mindset, how's your city ever going to take a step forward? You're always going to have issues that are going to hold back an investment into your city.
And a lot of these things that they're talking about that are so important that need to be done ahead of the stadium are not things that are going to help the city grow and bring revenue to the city. Some of it is, but some of it is not. And, you know, I'm not going to get all negative and bash certain things like a library, for instance. You know, there's a library that needs to get built, apparently.
An art center.
Who uses a library anymore? I mean, I know some people do, so that's fine. But it almost seems like they're just pulling everything they possibly can and throw a list out there so that the people can look at it and go, do we really need a football stadium when all these things need to be done? So we don't live in Halifax. We don't even live in Nova Scotia. But from the outside looking in on some of this stuff, it's unfortunate. But again, at this point and at this stage of the game, most of what you're going to see is uneducated, one-sided negativity.
All right. Well, I'm going to give my 2 cents. Can I give my 2 cents?
You can give 5 cents.
All right. We have been huge fans of Halifax getting this team from day one.
Yes.
Right? We think the population's there. We think that having it along in that along the ocean there, whatever you call it, the harbor.
Yeah, the harbor. Yeah.
Having it in the harbor, it's going to be a beautiful spot to go watch a football game. It's not that far of a drive either way. Jeez, I'm going to be this Friday I'm going to St. FX, and the next Friday I'm going to Acadia. And those are games that I'll travel to and come home.
Yeah.
It's not that far.
It's not a bad drive for us.
It's not that bad drive.
Mountain. Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm getting real tired of Halifax very quickly here. Okay. I'm getting so tired of the naysayers and the everything that's going on with these city councilors. They're so far apart over this damn stadium. And Andy, we have a stadium in Moncton.
Yeah.
Anthony LeBlanc, if you're listening, you're from New Brunswick. And I've been telling you from day one this team should be in Halifax. I'm getting very close to the point. The heck with Halifax. Let's get this team up and running in Moncton.
Yeah.
We can be on the field in 2021. Very minor things that need to be done to that stadium. We just saw that stadium put on a great game between the Owls and the Argos.
Let's remind everybody, right? They're looking to pay $130 million to put the stadium up in Halifax. The stadium that currently sits in Moncton only has about $18 million sunk into it so far.
Yeah.
So what do you got to put into it to spruce it up and get it to the point where you're willing to play CFL games there? We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there too, but it would be a completely different plan of attack for them.
Completely, because...
But I hope very much that it's it's in the back of their minds because what we're seeing is not encouraging. Sorry to throw you off.
These are three businessmen that, there's probably more to the group, but these guys are smart guys. And, you've got provincial politicians, you've got municipal politicians, these talk shows that are, that these talk shows do everything they can, Andy, to not bring people closer together, but to pull them farther and farther apart.
Yeah.
Rick Howe and these boys down at 95, whatever it is. Yeah. They do everything they can to pull people farther apart. You know why, Andy? It's ratings, okay? Yep. But it's not helping the cause that Atlantic Canada can really use a professional football team for a number of things. You know what's funny in all these things, Andy? Nobody talks about the jobs that a team would create. Right? I haven't heard any politician talk about that yet.
Well, there's definitely in the original story that was talking about a summary of the proposal. That was actually not, it was a neutral story. It wasn't somebody with an agenda. It was a neutral story just giving a summary of it.
Yeah.
They talked about the estimated number of jobs that this would create.
Yeah.
Not just to operate the stadium, but a lot of temporary jobs in building the stadium. There's a lot going on here. Anyway, I keep interrupting you, Ray. I'll let you keep going, but there's no way that all of the city councilors are this narrow-sighted. I think right now this is just the news getting us fired up.
It's getting us fired up. But listen, I'm really hoping that our city councilor or their city councilors down there, guys like Tony Mancini, Mayor Savage, I'm hoping that these guys can do everything they can to rally the troops into getting into the fact this is good for the city of Halifax. If you guys don't do this, here in Moncton, we'll take it. I would love on game day to drive 5 minutes over to the stadium and go to a Schooners game versus to go all the way to Halifax.
You guys have no idea how fun it would be for us
if
it
guys,
was here in Moncton.
You guys are going to lose it. And the problem is once it's in Moncton full time, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
And the whole reason, Andy, there used to be this thing called the UTEC, and they've had this conversation for years in Halifax over a stadium. And I can't believe we're in 2019 and Halifax hasn't solved the fact that they don't have a stadium big enough to host a CFL game. Well, it's embarrassing for the city of Halifax.
And the fact that the proposal here is not just for a CFL stadium, but it's for an entire
provincial
365-day-a-year community sporting center that would be so nice for all of these. They're partnering up with different organizations like Sports Nova Scotia. So the fact that these councillors cannot see what this is going to bring to the province and to the city, again, like I said, Ray, I refuse to believe that they're that narrow-sighted, and that I think we just have some rhetoric here. We have got some people.
I found my leave it. Yeah. I'm leaving Susan LeBlanc and most of those city councilors down there right now, and Rick Howe and the 95 show for causing the mud that they've caused.
Oh boy!
If you can't get your stuff together, I'm going to send a message out to Mayor Arnold and here in Moncton and say, what do we need to do to get these guys to start focusing on Moncton?
Yeah, I'm sure that conversation's been had. All right, well, let's talk about the picks, Ray. We both went 2-2 last week. I got my lock. You missed your upset. So I'm now at 39-22 on the year. You were 37-24. I'm 8-8 in the lock and upsets. You're 7-9. You need a big week.
I'm running out of time.
You need a big week. All right. Let's pick some games.
Okay.
The Friday game. There's a Friday game, and then we got a triple header on Saturday.
Yes.
Again, Friday game. Edmonton at Hamilton. And just a reminder, you get to pick a lock this week.
All right. Well, there's my lock. I'm taking Hamilton at home against Edmonton.
All right. I, too, am taking Hamilton at home. Saturday, the early game. This is going to be a juicy one. Calgary at Montreal.
Boy, this is going to be a great game. Montreal has got to turn on the Jets now if they're going to have any chance of catching Hamilton for the first seed overall.
Yes.
And it starts in this game here, Andy. I don't know if they can catch them, but it's going to be close.
Yep.
They need to win this game. Adams Jr.'s back.
Yep.
Team will be fired up.
Oh, fired up.
I'm taking Montreal in this game.
I wish I was in Montreal for this one. I'm going to take Montreal, and will you allow me to call this my upset?
I'll give you the upset
All
on
right,
it.
Montreal, and that's going to be my upset.
No way he would do it for me.
I would definitely do it for you. After the little talk we had after week 1. Week 1 I wouldn't, or week 2 or so I wouldn't have done it. Middle game on, this is a big one. This is the big rivalry game. We got Winnipeg going to Saskatchewan for a game. This might be what's fueling all these little hateful memes and various things like that. What do you think's going to happen here?
Well, this is the third time these guys have played in like the last 5 weeks.
I know.
And right now
It's like
they're
they
tied. They're tied 1-1. This is a tiebreaker, Andy.
Yeah.
Boy, this is a tough game to pick here too. Saskatchewan's trending in the right decision or in the right direction.
Yeah.
Winnipeg not so much, but I'm going to stay true to my heart.
Okay.
I'm going W.
Winnipeg. Wow. Nice, Ray. Nice. I will go Saskatchewan because I'm staying true to my heart, and Saskatchewan's not really my heart.
I need to catch some points on you.
But the home team is where my heart is at for this particular series, so I'll pick them, and yeah, that's perfect because that'll either pad my lead or get you back into it.
There you go.
And then the late game on Saturday, and I will tell you right now, there is exactly a 0.0% chance that either of us watch this one based on the start time and the teams that are in it. But we have Toronto at BC, Ray. What do you think's going to happen here?
Well, listen, Mike Riley's on a little bit of a winning streak.
He is.
He's playing really good football. He's getting some protection, which is crazy. All of a sudden, he's got a line that's giving him some protection so he can get rid of the ball. Their defense is playing a little bit better, too. The biggest thing with Toronto is I don't know who's starting at quarterback. Right. If I'm the coach right now, I don't have a lot of faith in Franklin, like we already talked about. Is it Bethel Thompson? What's going on in Toronto? Based on the fact, now we do have a really good connection in Toronto, though, with Richardson.
Yeah.
Do I go with the connection of Richardson, or do I go with what makes sense?
I would go with what makes sense.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to defer this game over to you for your pick first.
For my analysis?
Yeah.
Well, no problem. I'll make this easy for you. Quarterback uncertainty and a trip from Toronto all the way to BC is enough for me to take Riley and their little winning streak. And I'm taking BC all the way at home. So you can go ahead and go with Toronto.
I need the points.
Because you need the points.
I need to catch you.
Yep.
That was a little strategic thing I just did there.
Well, I knew where you were going, so
I'm going to take Toronto for the victory in BC.
All right. For the first time in this CFL season, I believe in the Pickems, I've picked all 4 home teams.
Wow.
So, anyway, that, in theory, should be a smart thing to do.
There you go.
And speaking of smart, let's move on to our next segment where neither one of us are that. All right?
Why'd we have bad weeks? I didn't even pay attention.
Oh, my gosh, Ray. This is ridiculous. And last week, I threw us both under the bus on the podcast and said that, I hope anybody who watches this does not watch this for fantasy advice. One of our listeners actually told us, don't worry, we don't. And, here we go. I had a 78.2 week, which took me to 13.07 on the season, 3rd in FDS, dropped to 30th in the Schooners group.
Oh, boy.
It's a rough week. And then yours was even worse. You had 59.1 fantasy points. Check your lineup again. I had a quick look through your team, and I think you may have goofed up and left 2 slots empty again. So
I almost did it this week.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other week, the thing with CFL Fantasy, it's kind of like DraftKings. I won't get long-winded here, but the thing with CFL Fantasy is it's become a thing where you're mathematically better off not to take a defense. Well, Ray has changed the game on this. I call this the Ray Dunn approach to CFL Fantasy. Take the defense and just leave a wide receiver slot empty. Because that mathematically makes a ton of sense. You've done it multiple times. You've done it multiple times this year. No. Anyways, so you're 4th in FDS and 38th in the Schooners group. So why don't you run through your fantasy team this week?
I got Bo Levi Mitchell, William Stanback, Terry Williams, Eugene Lewis with Adams back, Kyron Moore, and Duron Carter.
Your buddy Duron Carter. Nice pick. I'm going Dane Evans. I think he's going to have a big game at home against Edmonton. Terry Williams, John White, Braylon Addison, the Hamilton receiver to pair with him, Shaq Evans, and Kenny Stafford. And I too am not going to start a defense. So when you plug that, have you already plugged that team in?
Plugged it in, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and they all went in there. There's not two empty slots.
They're all in.
All right, well, folks, that's the show for this week. Sorry we're a day late, but Ray was in Buffalo, and when he got back, he had some things to take care of. It's life. It's just life. That's all it is.
All right, go. Have a great week, guys. Enjoy the games, and we will be back on our regular recording day next week. We record on Tuesday. You'll have it out Tuesday night, and the video will be out on Wednesday morning.
Later.
See you guys.